People, I'm back again. Now, I'm sure you've all seen Amechi's been linked with Bayern Munich and a whole host of other clubs. Bayern Munich, leave our players alone. Stop going to Bournemouth's training ground and watching our 18s and 23s. The German clubs, quite rightly so, are looking to pinch a lot of these English players. There's around 20, 30 scouts at Bournemouth almost every time when Arsenal play. And I'm sure if you support Chelsea, United, or just about any other club, there's a bunch of scouts. Leave Amechi alone. Focus on Callum Hudson-Odoi. Just leave the man alone. You guys know I love Amechi. The man's a baller. It's almost like he didn't have that sad injury which kept him out for around 2, 3. Someone's telling me 3, but it was about 2 months, people. It kept him out for a while, but he's come back with a bang. It's like he's making up for lost time. Every game you watch, he's one of the standouts. Every game is the Amechi show. I've got a lot of time for him, really and truly. Once his end product is finally fully there, fine-tuned. It's just a case of fine-tuning him. He's 18, he's 19 next January. It's just about fine-tuning. It's about having a pathway or a significant plan for it to integrate him into the first team, in my opinion. There's not much he can't do. Set pieces. He can play on the left. He can play on the right. He's not afraid to use his right, but the man is left-footed. At Arsenal, we barely have wingers, let alone direct left wingers. You see what I'm saying? He's a baller. He can skill a man up. Lovely balance. Relishes taking a man on. Can do the 1-2s as well, so he can mix up his game. Got a lot of time for him. Hitting the back of the net at youth level as well. Obviously, it's a big jump from youth level to replicating goal-scoring form at the top, but he's a baller, people. He has been a baller, and he is a baller. And he probably, I know Saka gets a lot of hype and stuff, and Saka's a baller as well. Between them, I think they're both equally talented, but I think Amechi is probably the biggest talent whispered at this club. People can see he's a baller. People know he's a baller, but he's not got the Nelson hype, the Emil Smith Rowe hype, any of them sort of hypes. And I'm not a big fan of hype, people. I don't really care for hype. I genuinely believe we shouldn't even know about these players. Just let them develop, because more time, these people that gas up these players, they're never watching them, and they're the first that want to kill them and hang them out to dry. Amechi's a young player. If he was to be thrown into first team right now, there'll be games he'll be hot and cold. He's a young man. He's still trying to get consistency. But for me, he couldn't do much worse than some of the players. And for me, it's about giving him minutes. It's about a pathway, people, really and truly. There needs to be a pathway. He's 19 next January. There's a lot being said about his contract. I know he's contracted until 2022. Mr. James Bainge, or whatever his name is, on all them journalists, is false reporting. He is contracted until next summer, and there's an option in his contract for another deal. So it's not, he's 17, you're not allowed to sign certain durations of deals, people, at a time. Clubs can get around it, but contractually, legally, you're not allowed. So a lot of false reporting. So his contract is technically up next summer, which shows you, which brings a bit of concerns in it, people, because you could see, his contract's up next summer. Bayern Munich are linked with him. They bid in the summer. Arsenal playing a dangerous game. January, he'll be able to talk to other clubs. It'll be a massive, dangerous game that we're playing. You'd think Arsenal would cash in. I believe he'll stay. I believe he wants to make it here. I believe he's got every chance of making it here. I believe the pathway is clear for him here. The issue now would be, what do we do in the summer? Because there's Denis Suarez. Obviously, he's more the Ramsey replacement, in my opinion, but he can be utilised on either flank. You've got Mkhitaryan. We've been linked with Cengiz Uda. I can't say his name. I can't say his name. The Turkish Roma winger. Every week we're linked with another winger. So if we're bringing in a winger, there's obviously Nelson to come back. His future's up in air in terms of what we do with him next year. Emil Smith Rowe, the same. So will there be a pathway to which, if I was him, I'm going to be brutally honest, people. If I was Xavier Amaechi, as I keep calling him as a nickname, I'd probably leave. I can't even lie to you. I'd probably leave. Not necessarily to Bayern Munich, but like I said, there's around anything up to 20 plus scouts watching these games from Germany. If there's a lower league German club that, I don't know, not to boy it or nothing, because they're not, but Dortmund with what they did with Sancho, any other examples, if they're prepared to give you a pathway and they've got serious plans for you, I can't lie. If I was Amechi, I'd consider leaving. Arsenal would be my priority, but I've got to give you the honest thing, people. I'd consider leaving. Why? Because obviously it is closer to reaching my goal of being a professional footballer. As sick as these young players are at Arsenal, how many chances are they really going to get? You've got to be honest, people. Emery, it doesn't strike me as someone that's necessarily going to utilise these youth. That's just my personal opinion. For all he was talking about before, he seems someone, for me, is that you need to go out and get experience before he wants to play you. He's used Saka. Emil Smith Rowe was obviously used, and he actually blocked his loan before he went out. So there's examples. But in terms of playing a significant period, I think he's only going to do that if you've got some career appearances under your belt. To which he'd probably have to depart the club to go and get that. And if you look at it, Emery, he's got a lot to do at first team level. He's got to sign these centre halves. He's got to move on Deadwood. He's got to deal with Ozil and all of these things. So there's not really a scope. Obviously, it's not really an excuse, and it is a cop out. But he's not really got time to be looking at young players and stuff. And for me, anyways, Amechi would be someone I bring through for pre-season and look to integrate at some capacity next season, because he shouldn't be playing under 23 football. We need to be patient because he's just come back from his injury. We need to be patient because he's still only 18 and he's a young man. But he's a baller, people. Honestly, the man's a baller. The man is a baller. Like, I really rate him. I would consider leaving if I was him. The priority would be Arsenal, but the bigger priority is being a professional footballer. I'm sure Jadon Sancho wanted to do it at City. He really wanted to do it at City, but it's about signing yourself. He's left playing for Munich and playing for Dortmund, played for England now. Obviously, you're seeing him linked with PSG and United for 100 million or so. Everyone's happy. Dortmund are going to make their profit. Sancho's a household name in football. I'm sure Amechi wants a piece of that as a footballer, because that's the goal, being a professional footballer, playing week in, week out. As good as these young players are at Arsenal, it's gazy because we're trying to get into the top four again. We've got our own issues. So as much as fans want these young players to play, will fans concede the likes of Amechi, Nelson, Emil Smith-Rowe, that they'll have hot and cold moments. They're still developing, but we play them a significant part, but we run the risk of becoming less competitive, because if you look over at Liverpool, they're signing whole heap of stars. Chelsea have the money to go and do that, as does Liverpool, in case I didn't say that already. City as well. So will fans see that the movements they're doing in regards to moving closer to immediate success, will they be able to concede that and have patience with our young players? I don't think many fans have the IQ to understand that. I don't think many fans have the patience to do that. I think if most fans were honest, they'll accept that they wouldn't do that. So footballers have one thing. It sounds silly because I've said patience and time, but the one thing you don't have in football is time. So how feasible is it? And for as good as these young players are, when you're at a club, are you really at a club? Like, Saka is obviously at Arsenal. He travels here and there, primarily for now anyways. He's playing under 23s. Nelson was travelling and things like that and made 16 appearances for Arsenal, but how many were significant appearances where he's playing? The manager needs to be brave and saying, okay, Nelson, Smith-Rowe, Amechi, I'm going to give you a lot of time. If we look at the current backdrop of things, you'd think either Saka and Amechi, one of them's going to go out on loan just on the trend of Nelson and obviously Emil, despite the fact that I felt Emil's quite young for that, and I didn't think, considering his injury, it would happen. So you'd think they'd be alone. If I'm Amechi, do I necessarily want to go out on loan? I can see it because I do believe he's an Arsenal fan and wants to make it here, but would you want to go out on loan? You could say, sorry for the win, people, you could say yes, but you could also say no, because if there's a club in Germany or elsewhere that's going to say, okay, cool, we know you're not ready to start week in, week out, but you're going to train with the first team, as Amechi does at Arsenal, on a regular basis, you're going to get appearances, and gradually we're going to bring you in, similar to what they did with Sancho. Remember when Sancho got recalled from the Under-17s World Cup in India, and people were losing their mind, how could they do that? And then they were saying he's playing for the Under-19s at Dortmund, why did they do that? And now look, there's a plan in place. Obviously, the club probably have a plan in place for Amechi, but I would like for him, if it hasn't, and just as a fan speculating, I would like for him to actually know that, because you run the risk of being these players. For me, Amechi shouldn't be playing under 23 football next year, really and truly. And not just him, Saka, a lot of these players, because it's not developing you. It's not developing you. And you find yourself in this thing where, like Eddie and Ketty, is that you're too good for under 23s, but you're not quite getting a look in at the first team. So you find yourself primarily getting minutes here and there doing that. I don't know why Nketiah didn't play against Swansea, to be fair with you. But you get what I'm saying. For me, from the ages of 16 to 17, obviously you have to do your years playing under 23s, but if you can, from 16 to 18 as quickly as possible, probably your first year as a scholar, you need to be trying to kick on to under 23s, in my opinion. Obviously, not everyone can, so second years. By the time you're 18, 19, you should have mastered 23 football and should be ready to leave it. Amechi and Saka are bullying teams week in, week out. So one of them, if not both, will probably go out on loan or be promoted next year, or they should be. Look at Willock. Willock is beating up youths for the under 23s week in, week out. How much times have you seen Willock do? How many games have I reported after I've watched them and I've told you Joe Willock is bullying them players? You're not going to learn. The only time them man there learn is when they were in the Czech or Trade Trophy and they were playing against physically more developed men. you at times, I'm not saying Amechi or anyone does, but subconsciously you're going to play within yourselves. I know, because I have these talks with people within academies. You're going to play within yourself subconsciously, because you know, if you're, let's just say, use Amechi as an example, he's bullying under 23 level. You know, playing a game against, I don't know, Joe Bloggs United, this left back, you know you're going to kill him. It doesn't matter if you do step overs, 1-2s, dribble and cutbacks, you're going to beat him with whatever. Week in, week out, you're thinking that. How necessarily are you improving? Versus if you play against men or teams that are more physically developed than you, yeah, you might be able to beat them for pace or skill, but he might kick you. He might be physically stronger than you, so you can't do that. He might be quicker than you, so you've got to do different things. And that's the level that a lot of these young players are at. So, like, if the players I believe, hand on my heart, shouldn't be playing at this level next year. I'll say Tutu, because he's 20 years of age. He needs to go and get minutes. Zach Medley, because allegedly the club rate him highly, and I think he's a decent player, but all the benefits I see from him seem to be him on the ball, not necessarily defensive action, so he needs to go out and learn that. I've already said Joe Willock and Nketiah, in case you didn't know. Saka, to a degree, he's a bit young, so we need to. He's been playing a year up for a while now. We need to keep time with him, but possibly do something in regards to him. Amechi, of course. Tyrese John Jules would be one for me as well, because again, these lot are bullying youth level, and I'm pretty sure if you ask them all, they all want to make it at Arsenal, but if you asked all of these young players there, they don't want to be playing 23 football. It's not going to improve them. It is a graveyard, people. I'm not going to lie to you. There's players at our club that are 20 years of age. Look at Ben Shafe. I rate him highly. I want him to go and have a career somewhere, but he's 20 almost. Him and Peglowoso, they're 20, 21 or whatever. They're playing 23 football. They're not developing. And you run the risk of, the longer you stay doing this, when the time comes that Arsenal clip you or you decide that you leave, I hope you will get moves. But if I'm a prospective League One, Championship, maybe even German manager, I'd still take you on. But I would look at you as like, okay, cool, you've been there since 20. I've looked at your CV. The fact that you was with Arsenal enticed me to look at this in the first place. But what significance have you got in terms of men's football? What faith can I have in that you can help my relegation fight or my aspirations to get promoted or just help me improve? This is the right risk you take, people. 23 football is a graveyard. I'm not saying that everybody needs to run off people. You need patience at the same time. And I do think a lot of these young players are impatient, especially with busting out at times to Germany and stuff. Not all, some. But yeah, for what it's worth, I don't think this Bayern Munich stuff is going to happen, people. But if I'm honest, away from Bayern Munich, because if I was a Amechi, I wouldn't sign for Munich. If they gave me a clear pathway and I planned, then I actually would. But they've got some wingers, some good wingers there. They've got Gnabry. They linked with a whole host of other wingers like Pepe and that. Would you really play? I'm not sure. But the other German clubs that have a proven track record of developing players and things like that, if they're watching and scouting you and provide me with an option or a contract on the table or something like that, considering his contract the issues that we could face next season, I'm not gonna lie, if I was Amechi, it would entice me, because as much as I like Arsenal, I've been here for time. At the end of the day, I'm here to be a professional footballer, and is Unai Emery gonna give me a look in? I don't know, to be honest with you, people. That's a pet peeve of mine. Unai Emery's got a lot to deal with, so I'm not saying he has to throw in a lot of young players, but I mean, considering how some of these players have performed generally throughout the whole season, quite disappointed that some young players haven't had more of a look in or more of a chance to express themselves, because again, I'd rather someone like Amechi play than some of these players that have been in poor form, because with Amechi, of course, you want him to rip it up, but he's still yet to play Premier League consistently, so he'll make mistakes, he won't track his runners, he probably will be anonymous in games, but I'd rather see that someone with some potential, someone with some bravado, someone that at least you can have sympathy for the young players, because they're still developing. And again, that's off the backdrop of, I know the last couple of weeks we've done okay and we've got United to come, but yeah, people, I don't think he's going to go Bayern Munich, but this story could possibly develop, so let's keep a close eye on it. For what it's worth, I think he stays. I think it's nothing to worry about, but as an Arsenal fan, really and truly, how many times have we said that, and then we've seen some other things develop? But for 90 rays, people, deluded. Comment, subscribe, and do the rest. I'm out.